Iconic performers find something unique. The next of something is never going to be an imitation of what was before. They chart their own course.
Scott McKain. Scott, the author of the book Iconic. This is a guy who was booked by Arnold Schwarzenegger to give a presentation at the White House in front of the president.
Successful people introduce successful people to other successful people. That's why my battery gets charged when I get around people that think bigger than I do. When you think bigger, you'll begin to act bigger. But it's hard to act bigger if you're thinking small.
What is success to you? What's your version of how would you describe success?
For me, success is being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it in the way that you choose to do it. For me, that definition of success encompasses financial, it encompasses personal, and it encompasses professional.
I love that. Well, I've heard someone say, with the people you want to do it with as well. I think that's an important one. You know, you and I got to hang out in Hawaii just recently, and I think it's fun to do those things with the right people.
That's going to be tacked onto my definition from now on, right? Because, let's face it, there are times in your progress to success that you have to deal with jerks, and you have to deal with people that you don't want to be around. And I think that's one of the great things that comes as you become more successful is that you don't have to, I've seen a book called The No Asshole Rule. I love the title of that book because that's what you aspire to. That's part of why I wanted to become successful. No matter how successful you become, you're still going to run across those people. But to be able to choose to be around great people all the time just continues to elevate the success.
Part of your success is the people you've hung out with. I know you hang out with a bunch of speakers and authors on a regular basis, and you hone your skills with them. Explain more about why you do that.
Successful people introduce successful people to other successful people, right? It continues to elevate. And that's one of the things that I've noticed is that those people charge my battery. In most situations, there's less rivalry and less jealousy among people of that level of success. We tend to contribute to each other, and we want to help each other, and we want to find avenues of mutual opportunity for each other.
When did you choose success?
It was the summer before my freshman year in high school. I was sitting on the next to the last row of Loeb Playhouse, and they had a speaker come in, and he spoke to the convention. It was the first time I'd ever heard an outside speaker. And it was the first time in my life I thought I could be more than a grocery store owner, small-time farmer in Crothersville, Indiana. Not that there's anything wrong with choosing that, because that was the path my dad took, and there's people that feel very successful there. But I knew it wasn't for me. And a speaker opened my eyes and began my journey. I won't say that was the exact moment, but that was the moment I started exploring possibilities that were new to me, thinking about goal setting, thinking about what could you achieve in your life in a way different from the daily mundane trap that so many people get caught up in, and so many of the people that I was living in my small community were caught up in.
I love that story, and I think every time I ask that question, it's amazing. How does success happen?
Wow, what a great question, Brad. I think it's a combination of aspirations and diligence. You have to have the aspiration, right? I mean, the metaphor's been overused, but I can't imagine playing football on a field with no yardage markers and no goal line. If you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there. We've heard that a million times. But the reason it's a cliche is because it's so doggone true. People aren't motivated by generalizations. They get motivated by specifics. So there has to be a specific aspiration. But then just like in anything else, you got to do the reps. And there are hacks and there are learning methods that can help you avoid some of the mistakes, but those can never take away just the showing up and being there and doing it. It's that combination that you continue to learn so you avoid mistakes, but you have the goal in mind and you do the reps that it takes to get.
How can failure teach success? Because you and I both know we didn't get here without making mistakes and having some learning experiences along the way.
That's why mentors are so important. And I think we tend to think of a mentor as a person that we know individually. I shook hands with Jim Rohn one time, but yet I consider him, as I know you do as well, a great mentor because we have learned from the audios and the videos and the training that he's left behind. The mentorship there wasn't intensive in terms of time, but it was significant in terms of relevance because I got to see that he lived what he talked about.
You're a genius when it comes to branding. That is one of the things that I absolutely love learning from you. When you wrote the book Iconic and you start to think about success in being iconic, what are some of the absolute fundamentals for someone in their business or in their personal life to be iconic, I guess?
That's a great question, Brad. It gets back to one of the things we've talked about, and that is playing the game your way. One of the things that I found about iconic individual performers and iconic organizations is that they were aware of the marketplace. Obviously, they're aware of their competition, but they're not obsessed with it. They have found a way to play the game their way.
So how does a business succeed in going from being the same to actually being distinct and being different? How do they do that?
A quick 4-step process, Brad. The first one is clarity. You got to know exactly who you are. Zig talked about this many years ago. I'd rather be a meaningful specific than a wandering generality. Distinction, and there's something you're very, very clear about who and what you are. Second, though, is creativity. You've got to find a unique twist that you can put on it. The example I use often is the Taylor family that starts a rental car business thinking how they can be different than the big players like Hertz and Avis. So they thought, what if we take the car to you rather than making you come and get the car? That was the beginning of Enterprise Rental Car, which is now bigger than Hertz and Avis, not because the product is different. The Ford I get is the same no matter who I get it from, but they found just a unique way to do that. So Jeff Bezos thinks, how can I be the Enterprise Rental Car of books? And then if I can get a book to your door, I can get anything to your door. Sometimes it's cherry picking a great practice from another business outside your own, another industry outside your own. Third is communication, and that's the power of story. How do we create a compelling narrative? We've got to hook them with a compelling story that gets people interested and engaged and wanting to know more and wanting to connect with you. So communication is third, and then fourth is the customer experience. So it's how customers feel about doing business with us. So it's clarity, creativity, communication, customer experience.
How does someone level up their success? They're already doing good, but we want to do great or better.
Good is the enemy of great. And when we see good enough as the enemy, rather than a stair step, we start doing the kind of thinking that's required for big success. I think big success also requires big thinking. To attain a higher level of success, it requires a different level of thinking. And it requires you constantly advancing your performance as you accelerate your goal.
How do you get someone to move from that millionaire thinking to the billionaire thinking?
You surround yourself as best you can with other people who think that way. It's hard to set with all the people around you are thinking small and you're the outlier thinking big. If you don't start with your thinking, your action is not going to follow.
And that's the Big Success Podcast for today. Hopefully you took a lot of notes, learned a whole bunch, and if you need to, go re-listen to it. We dropped a lot of information right there today. Big success is what it's all about. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button so you're here with us every single week on the Big Success Podcast. I'm Brad Sugars. That's BS. Big success is what we're shooting for. Check the show notes for all the links. Make sure you follow through. Keep learning. Keep coming back. Oh, and by the way, share this with any of your friends who you know are up for success. I'll see you next week on the Big Success Podcast.
You've been listening to the Big Success Podcast with the #1 business coach in the world, Brad Sugars. To learn more about how to achieve business and personal success, as well as how to level up or listen to past episodes, visit www.bradsugars.com.